Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into an epic historical rivalry and the fundamental physics that literally power our modern world. We're talking about alternating current and direct current. What exactly are they? What are their pros and cons? And why was one chosen to power the massive global grid while the other quietly dominates our everyday personal devices?
So, here's a fascinating paradox to start us off. Thomas Edison is, globally famous for inventing the practical incandescent light bulb. But if you actually trace the electricity from the outlet in your wall all the way back to the power plant, that entire grid relies on technology championed by his greatest rival, Nikola Tesla. So how exactly did that happen?
To figure that out, we've got to rewind a bit to Chapter 1, History's Greatest Electrical War.
This rivalry really kicks off in 1884. A young Nikola Tesla actually goes to work for Edison. And get this, Edison promises Tesla 50 grand if he can improve his direct current dynamos. So Tesla spends months obsessively perfecting them. But when he finally asks for the money, Edison just brushes him off, famously calling it an American joke. Naturally, Tesla quits. He teams up with investors like George Westinghouse, builds his own alternating current system, and by 1893, they're brilliantly lighting up the Chicago World's Fair. That massive, highly visible success quickly leads to them winning the monumental contract to harness the power of Niagara Falls.
But wait, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's pause at Part 2. What exactly are AC and DC?
Let's start with direct current, or DC. This was Edison's baby. In direct current, the electric charge flows in just one single direction. Think of it as a constant, steady stream of electrons moving from a negative charge area over to a positive charge area. The voltage doesn't fluctuate. It stays completely stable over time. In a standard setup, those electrons are flowing in a continuous, unbroken loop. They start at the battery, pass through the bulb to light it up, and head straight back to the source. It's incredibly simple and reliable. Honestly, it's a lot like water flowing continuously and steadily through a pipe.
Now contrast that with Tesla's champion, alternating current, or AC. Instead of moving in just one continuous direction, the electrons in an AC circuit actually periodically reverse course. They oscillate, constantly shifting back and forth, so both the direction of the flow and the voltage level are continuously changing.
Because that current is constantly reversing, it naturally creates a distinct sine wave pattern. It starts at zero, peaks at a positive charge, drops to a negative peak, and repeats, and it happens fast. For instance, in regions like Turkey, this exact cycle happens 50 times every single second. That's 50 hertz. The electrons are basically vibrating back and forth inside the wire.
Which brings us to a huge question in Part 3. Why did AC win the war of electrical transmission?
If Edison's DC was already working and lighting up early bulbs, why switch? Well, it all comes down to physics, specifically the massive problem of distance. When electricity travels through a wire, the resistance of that wire causes some of that energy to be lost as heat. And here's the absolute crucial rule. The power lost is directly proportional to the square of the current. To send a ton of power over a really long distance without losing it all as heat, you absolutely have to use very high voltage and very low current.
And this is where alternating current completely changed the game. AC gracefully solved the distance problem because it easily connects to transformers. A transformer can step the voltage way up and drop the current down. That super high voltage AC can travel hundreds of miles with hardly any power loss. Then once it hits your city, another transformer safely steps it back down to, say, 220 volts for your house. Edison's direct current just couldn't do this easily. To send DC power, Edison had to use these massive, thick, incredibly expensive copper cables and literally build a power plant every mile or two. AC was just vastly cheaper and far more efficient to build out as a grid.
Edison, of course, knew he was losing the economic battle. So what did he do? He resorted to a pretty dark PR stunt. To convince the public that AC was some deadly menace, he orchestrated a widespread smear campaign, publicly electrocuting animals with alternating current. The most tragic example was a circus elephant named Topsy, hit with 6,600 volts. But despite the shocking optics, the campaign ultimately failed to stop the sheer efficiency of the AC grid.
All right, let's fast forward to today with Part 4, AC versus DC comparison.
When you put them side by side, their distinct personalities are super clear. AC flows back and forth, creating that wavy sine wave, which makes it an absolute breeze to step voltages up or down for the power grid. DC, on the other hand, flows constantly in a straight line. It's totally flat, which makes it perfectly stable for energy storage and sensitive electronics.
To really visualize this, just look around your house. The heavy lifters, they rely entirely on Tesla's alternating current. The city grid, your wall outlets, large appliances like the fridge, your washing machine, the oven, all AC. Plus, those massive industrial motors and commercial HVAC systems use AC because the induction motors are robust, cheap to make, and barely need any maintenance.
But don't count Edison out just yet. Our entire modern digital world is completely dependent on direct current. Seriously, anything with a battery uses DC. Your mobile phone, your tablet, your laptop. On top of that, solar panels naturally generate direct current, and the massive batteries inside electric vehicles, they run entirely on DC too. You actually interact with the bridge between these two systems every single day. Your phone charger. You plug it into the wall, which is giving you AC, but your phone's battery strictly demands DC. That little power brick is an adapter, specifically a rectifier, that literally flattens out that undulating alternating current and turns it into the steady, direct current your battery needs to survive.
And that sets up a huge modern plot twist in Part 5, the return of direct current.
Take electric vehicles, for instance. If you charge an EV using AC power straight from your home, it can take anywhere from 2 to 10 hours. Why? Because the car has to slowly convert that AC into DC to actually store it in the battery. But if you use a commercial DC fast charging station, that charger pumps DC power directly into the battery, completely bypassing the car's internal converter. You go from hours of waiting down to less than an hour.
Here's an even wilder surprise. When we're talking about extreme distances today, DC is actually starting to beat AC. See, when transmitting AC power over thousands of kilometers, you run into something called the skin effect. Electrons get pushed to the outside of the wire, which bumps up resistance and power loss. High-voltage direct current, or HVDC, completely avoids this. Over 1,000 kilometers, HVDC reduces line resistance by 1/3 compared to AC. That means way less power lost along the journey.
Plus, the entire green energy revolution leans heavily on DC. Solar panels don't use spinning magnets like a traditional AC generator. They naturally produce direct current straight from the sun. And those giant battery banks storing that renewable energy? Exclusively DC. In fact, directly linking DC solar panels to DC batteries and DC devices can slash energy conversion losses by up to 80%.
So, ultimately, the choice between AC and DC, it's not a strict winner-takes-all scenario anymore. Honestly, both Tesla and Edison won in the end. As we've seen, both types of current are absolute lifesavers in different scenarios. Our modern world literally requires the harmony of both to function properly.
So the next time you plug your charger into the wall, just take a second to appreciate the journey of those electrons. From the high-voltage AC grid, stepping down into your home, running through that adapter, and finally filling up your DC smartphone battery. It really makes you wonder, how much of our modern life relies completely on this historic compromise? Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.